The American West in the late 1800s wasn't just about adventure. It was a battleground for power and survival. The range wars were violent disputes over land, livestock and control, pitting settlers, ranchers and business tycoons against one another. Today we'll focus on the Lincoln County War, the life of Billy the Kid, Wyatt Earp's infamous OK Corral gunfight and the Johnson County War. Let's have a look. So, as settlers moved west, the promise of land for farming and ranching created intense competition. The major players were as follows. We've got cattle barons, wealthy ranchers who favoured open grazing land for their herds, homesteaders, small settlers who wanted fenced properties for farming, and business tycoons, merchants and investors controlling supply lines and commerce. Conflicts arose over land ownership, water rights, and accusations of cattle rustling, often escalating into violent feuds. The Lincoln County War then in 1878 took place in New Mexico and is one of the best known range wars. This conflict began as a feud between competing business interests. It was caused by James Dolan and Lawrence Murphy, who owned a store in Lincoln. They controlled the local economy and were accused of being monopolistic. When Englishman John Tunstall and his partner Alexander McSween opened a rival store, tensions skyrocketed. The Dolan faction, supported by corrupt officials, saw Tunstall as a threat to their dominance. On February 18, 1878, Tunstall was ambushed and murdered by a posse allied with Dolan. His death enraged his supporters, including his young protege, Billy the Kid, who vowed revenge. The Regulators, a vigilante group formed by Tunstall's allies, carried out retaliatory attacks. These included ambushes and assassinations, further escalating the violence. The feud culminated in a 5-day standoff in July 1878. Eventually, McSween's house was surrounded by Dolan's forces and set on fire. McSween was killed as he fled, and the Regulators, they scattered. The war resulted in over 20 deaths and revealed the lack of law and order in the region. Although Dolan's faction regained control, the war tarnished their reputation. For Billy the Kid, it marked the start of his notorious outlaw career. So Billy was born Henry McCarty in 1859, and he became one of the West's most infamous outlaws. His short but dramatic life made him a symbol of rebellion and lawlessness. Orphaned as a teen, Billy drifted into petty crime, and by 17 he'd killed a man during a saloon brawl in Arizona, cementing his reputation as a gunslinger. Billy joined Tunstall's side during the Lincoln County War, believing in their cause against Dolan's corruption. During the war, he participated in multiple killings, earning both fame and notoriety. After the war, Billy continued his outlaw lifestyle. He escaped from jail multiple times, including a daring breakout in April 1881, where he killed 2 deputies. On July 14, 1881, Sheriff Pat Garrett ambushed and killed Billy in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Billy was only 21 years old, but he left an indelible mark on Wild West history. Another person that left a mark on the Wild West was a guy called Wyatt Earp. Unlike Billy the Kid, though, he represented the law, at least a version of it. He's best remembered for his role in the gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona. Earp had worked as a lawman, a gambler and a saloon keeper and moved through frontier towns in search of opportunity. In October 26, 1881, the Earp brothers, Wyatt, Virgil and Morgan, along with Doc Holliday, faced off against Clanton McClory gang at the OK Corral. The fight lasted just 30 seconds and left 3 gang members dead. Though initially seen as heroes, the Earps faced legal action eventually and public backlash for their actions, with some accusing them of murder. Wyatt spent his days after this mythologizing his story, ensuring his legacy as a Western legend. Finally then, the Johnson County War in 1892. This took place in Wyoming and was a brutal clash between wealthy cattle barons and small-time ranchers. Cattle barons accused smaller ranchers, often referred to as rustlers, of stealing livestock. Tensions escalated as barons sought to crush their competition. Then in April 1892, the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, the WSGA, hired mercenaries to eliminate suspected rustlers. A group of 50 armed men launched an assault on Johnson County, but met fierce resistance from the local population. Federal troops eventually intervened to end the violence, but public opinion sided with the smaller ranchers. The war exposed the growing divide between the powerful castle barons and struggling settlers. So the range wars then were more than just conflict. They were battles over the soul of the American West. Figures like Billy the Kid and Wyatt Earp became legends, while events like the Lincoln and Johnson County Wars shaped the frontier's legacy. Thank you for joining me today. If you want more videos on the Wild West, please do subscribe to my channel, Mr. Smith History. Thank you for joining me.